Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we welcome you once again to the airwaves of Salam Media on the various platforms of Salam Media on this Wednesday evening, and it is in conversation with myself, Inayat Wadi. Now, the last few days, we've seen right across the entire world, the major talking point has been the abduction of the Freedom Flotilla Medellin. Now, clearly, this has raised some very, very serious questions and also condemnation right across the entire board. And once again, we've seen Israel acting with total impunity and also at the same time defying the International Court of Justice's binding orders to allow unimpeded humanitarian aid to Gaza and also allowing them access. Now we've seen total disregard of international law. We've seen total disregard of criminal law. All of that at the end of the day, sending a very, very strong message and a powerful message that this is a regime that will act with impunity no matter what happens. Now, these serious questions will be answered tonight, and we are going to be talking to our a list of panelists this evening. We've got Zohar Chamberlain Regev, who is an Israeli citizen. She was born and raised in a kibbutz near Nazareth. She's lived in Spain for 14 years, where she has participated in the coordination of Rumble Gaza, the Freedom Flotilla campaign in the Spanish state. Zohar now lives in Germany, and she is the owner, or she was the owner, of the women's boat to Gaza Zaytouna-Oliva. We also have got Sümeyra, Akdeniz, Ordu, wife of Gaza Flotilla volunteer, we know, who has been still detained, and also joined by James Godfrey, who is the spokesperson for the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. To all my guests this evening, to the panelists, Assalamu alaikum, welcome, and we do appreciate your time. Yes, James, I'd actually like to begin with you because, I've seen the protest action that had taken place in the United Kingdom, where you obviously raised some very, very serious concerns with regard to the Medellin and the whole chain of events that had actually taken place. And for some reason or the other, personally for me, I wasn't surprised that we would see the type of reaction we've seen from the Israeli government. Just your take on these developments and how, these developments had actually played out at the end.
I mean, a boat was sailing in international waters more than 110 nautical miles from Palestine, from the port of Gaza. And we were sailing there with our very small boat, 18 meters long, with 12 people on board, carrying a modest amount of humanitarian aid. And we were violently attacked. We were surrounded by boats. Drones, quadcopters came above the boat. The communications were cut, and white chemical was sprayed all over the boat. And then the boat was attacked by, I presume, Israeli Marines or commandos. They attacked, secured the boat, and they then kidnapped the people. We were unable to maintain any communication with them for some period whilst they were, we find out now, detained below the level of the boat in the hull. And they were then taken very slowly. It took 10, 20 hours to even get to port. And then they were transferred to Israeli prisons and disappeared for a period of time. And this is an act of, it seems like an act of piracy on the high seas. There's a British flag on the back of the boat, and it's been attacked. And the silence of many countries in the world is absolutely extraordinary, whether you have an unarmed vessel traveling, as you said earlier, in line with the orders of the International Court of Justice to deliver humanitarian aid and take some love and solidarity and break this illegal siege. The Israelis were ordered to exit the Gaza Strip by the International Court of Justice, and they failed to. So we're just doing what I suppose what governments should be doing. They should be sailing in, and they should be opening up the borders, the maritime borders, and also the land borders. And what we do is try to break this siege.
You are no stranger to the type of action that we've seen come through from the Israeli regime, where previously in 2016, we know the Gaza Zaytouna-Oliva was the object of a seizure as well, and also an object of court proceedings in Israel as well, and also at the same time looking at many other flotillas that have actually come through in aid of the people of Gaza. Now, you are no stranger, and just from your understanding and your analysis of what has happened, was this expected?
We were expecting a variety of. I'm sorry,
James. Yes, I'm just Zohar, I think your mic is muted.
Yeah, sorry, I also thought that maybe the question was directed to James. But as James was saying, since the beginning of this escalation of the genocide, we have been trying to sail, and we actually had much graver concerns. We thought that the boat could be attacked, like our boat, the Conscience, was attacked just outside of Malta on the 2nd of May. That was a drone attack that actually bombed the boat and disabled it completely before it was able to load the participants and most of the participants and the humanitarian aid that was prepared in Malta and was going to board the ship. So we thought anything could happen. They could have sent a torpedo our way. I think we have chosen the right moment with media attention on us and with different initiatives also preparing to put pressure on Israel to allow aid in also through the Rafah border with the march to Gaza and the convoy, the Sumud convoy from North Africa. And we actually put them in a position, like we always do without direct nonviolent action, of having to react to what we do while our governments fail to do what they should do. And the fact that it was an interception in international water, much further than other interceptions that we've experienced, did not really surprise us. The bad treatment that our activists receive in the Israeli jail is nothing compared to the suffering of Palestinian prisoners in their thousands who've been also kidnapped from their homes in the West Bank, in Gaza, and put through torture, have been starved to death. This should really be the focus of what we're talking about. Of course, we want all our activists to return safely home, but the fact that they were willing to risk their life is a testimony to what humanity should really be doing in the face of this genocide. Thank you.
We cannot hear you.
Sümeyra, Zohar makes a very, very telling point in terms of the activists willing to risk their lives. And for someone like yourself and also the wife of Ordu as well, I think, this is very, very important. And if you could possibly just share, an insight into the risks that are taken, and I'm sure, Umar must have discussed this with you as well. And if you could just take us through, some of the developments leading up to when the Madeleine had actually started sailing, and what sort of discussions had taken place, between yourself and Umar as well, just in terms of the risk factor in itself.
Yeah. Thank you as first. So I'm just since last year in the Freedom Flotilla coalition with my husband, and we tried it many times, but we know from Zohar that they are more active, and it began on 2008. So when we joined the Freedom Flotilla coalition, we tried it on April 2024 in Istanbul, and we were really many people, 500 if I remember right, and we were from 52 countries, members, volunteers, activists. So we tried it, even if we knew that it might be very riskful. What kind of risks? We know it, especially from the moment 15 years ago from Mavi Marmara. They killed 10 volunteers from the Freedom Flotilla coalition. And we saw the risks. We saw also what kind of reaction the governments had to this. It's also really political because we want to challenge all the governments who are passive and don't do anything about this genocide, about this suffering. So we didn't give up after Istanbul. We tried it in Malta with the Conscience ship, and Israel has bombed our ship with two drones. And now we had the mission where my husband is still detained in the prison in Ramleh. And yes, we're waiting.
Yes, I think for some reason we have lost Sümeyra. But let's just continue, James. And I think from what Sümeyra was describing, and we're talking about the risk factor. Now, we knew early on when this genocide had already started unfolding that Gaza will be changing the world forever. And we've seen this change right across the entire world. Millions have come out onto the streets voicing their concerns and also voicing their emotions when they see this genocide that is unfolding. And we've seen so much happen in the last 20-odd months or so, to the extent now, together with the flotilla, the latest now, we're actually seeing this whole drive through some of the countries in Africa, through Tunisia, Libya, Morocco, and going into Egypt. We know that there is this march to the Rafah crossing as well, many people from right across the entire world. So we've seen this change, and also looking at how Gaza has actually changed activism. And just from your perspective, and I know that this obviously will not deter you, it will not deter the Flotilla coalition, but it will just basically strengthen the activism and the protests and the disgust that people are actually feeling right across the entire world as to what is unfolding in Gaza right now.
Yeah, really. It's just because of that we know that when we are passive to all the people who are killing innocent people, innocent kids, when we are passive about these situations, we are then not a human. And we just try to be as a human as we have to be. So it's not ethical to just watch these videos, to just say, oh, it's so sad, I'm praying for them. We just wanted to make more than pray, because we also say this in Islam, that we have two kinds of praying, and one is just with the mouth and one is with our acting, and the acting pray is more important than with our mouth.
Yes, certainly. In fact, what you're saying is very, very true. And I think at the end of the day, it is about giving voice to the voiceless as well. And James, it's interesting to see how the governments have actually reacted. We know certain governments have actually reacted, condemning Israel for this action, but also looking at Europe in itself as well, and especially where you are. What is expected of governments at this point in time?
I mean, where I am in the United Kingdom at the moment, you've got the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary. I mean, they're mute on this. And there's a British flagged ship. It's unsurprising, though, because it's the British and the French which started it all with the Sykes-Picot Agreement and then the Balfour Declaration. And they've been sustaining and supporting and not objecting to the illegal Israeli blockade for 18 years. They've done nothing. apart from not just they've done nothing, they've positively supported the Israelis in maintaining this illegal blockade. So we're unsurprised. However, I am sensing from my time here that there is a shift, a significant shift from being out and about in the communities. I've just been passing by talking to people. There are a lot of people here who are very familiar, whether it be on street corners in this shop or that shop. When I'm chatting to people, they know about what's going on, not just with what's happening in the Gaza Strip, but also with the Freedom Flotilla coalition. And so we're very pleased that we've been able to increase shine a greater light and to amplify the voices, because there are plenty of voices from Palestine, but they're being silenced, muted, and unamplified. And that's part of our job. So we work with our partners. We are not numbers. The Union of Agricultural Works Committees. We work to amplify the voices, and seeing the people on the beaches, the kids, the paintings, the calls, the expectations of us coming, and then being quashed again by the Israelis, but with the British support. And you have the British government with its flights from Cyprus carrying out surveillance flights in support of the Israeli genocide. And it's not just genocide as a single word, it's mass starvation. It's the deprivation of water. It's the denial of medical supplies. It is the denial of all forms of human existence. And the British government is 100% up to its neck in the support of this. And there are people who need to face justice.
Yes, James, thank you for that. Zohar, I just want to refer to what Sümeyra spoke about, taking action. And this famous quotation from Greta Thunberg saying, we can no longer let the people in power decide what hope is. Hope is not passive. Hope is not blah, blah, blah. Hope is telling the truth. Hope is taking action. And hope always comes from the people. Now, this obviously is a very telling statement, because it's all about taking action. And you made reference earlier on to media and how the media, particularly mainstream media, has been looking at this. Now, I watched an interview with Piers Morgan with Francesca Albanese, and he actually called it a stunt. He called it attention seeking. He called it a futile attempt. He called the flotilla a joke and a publicity stunt. Now, this is what mainstream media is actually thinking about, what is taking place. And we know for a very, very long time, in terms of mainstream media, the narratives that they have been pushing out as well with regard to the genocide. Many actually refuse to even call it a genocide. Putting all of this into perspective and looking at comments coming through from people like Piers Morgan, comments like this, what does this actually tell us about the media and how serious? And this is why I said serious questions need to actually follow from what this incident that had taken place. Just how serious is mainstream media as far as the Gaza genocide is concerned?
I think what we are facing with this genocide in particular, because it's such a live stream atrocity, is that people's sense of helplessness is increased because they are enraged, but they go out in the street and they protest and there is no change. And we're coming on to the 20th, I think maybe the 2021 month of this exactly escalation of the genocide, because the genocide in Palestine has never stopped, really. This is ethnic cleansing and intent to annihilate the Palestinian population. But the fact that we, through our action, encourage people and tell them, look, something can be done, and the fact that through participation of figures like Greta Thunberg and also Rima Hassan, we managed to draw enough media attention to our action, which will be in a way futile if it wasn't followed. If people did not know that we set sail, then really one little boat can do nothing. But one little boat can do a lot if it carries a message of encouragement to people to resist this evil and to take action in their own countries against it. And I have to say, I live here in Germany, and Germany has been lying about what's going on in Palestine for many, many years. It ignores most of the atrocities committed by Israel, but it amplifies the Israeli propaganda, trying to portray them as the victims. And so the fact that we manage to have some coverage, very biased, very false, but still coverage in mainstream German media, I think this is a proof that our action is not futile. We managed to break this media blockade. And the more people, just people from all walks of life realize that they do not have to be complicit in this genocide, that they can stand up to their government, they can do things like Palestine Action is doing, trying to shut Elbit system down, or people trying to block boats that carry weapons, dock workers who are striking and saying we will not deal with these ships that are delivering death basically in our name to Palestine. This is really the message that we have.
Yes, Zohar. Sümeyra, we've seen one of the activists who arrived in Barcelona, Sergio Toribio, slamming these actions by the Israeli government when he arrived in Barcelona. And the statement he made is, it is unforgivable, it is a violation of our rights, it is a pirate attack on international waters. Now, all of this is on record. It has been live streamed. We've seen the illegal attack, the detention of the activists, and also all of this in violation of international marine law. The law of the seas was broken. We've seen the violation of international humanitarian law in terms of the Geneva Convention. We've seen this as a war crime, which is a prohibition of humanitarian supplies. And also, at the end of the day, it's a violation of international criminal law as well. Now, these are clear and, as I mentioned, live streamed in real time, where we see these crimes against humanity unfolding. And just, looking at it from where you are, and we know the Turkish government has also slammed and condemned Israel for its actions. What are some of your thoughts? What are some of the expectations as far as all these laws that are broken? I see Sümeyra has actually gone off screen. Perhaps, James, you could just take this further as well in terms of international law that Israel has actually showed total disregard for.
Israel's been violating international laws since it was established. It continues to, and the international community has failed to uphold international law. There are many international lawyers who have been saying for close to 20 months, the international law is now meaningless, is failing to take any action. And so the International Court of Justice, the very slow way in which the wheels are turning, the International Criminal Court, I mean, sure, it's issued a couple of warrants for arrest for some alleged war criminals, but they've done nothing else. So international law is absolutely failing, and national laws are failing as well. So we're looking at a potential collapse of the international legal order relating to all of the various topic areas which you mentioned, be it the law of the sea, the Geneva Conventions, the right of innocent passage, international humanitarian. There's so many things that are being breached at the moment, and who's holding people to account? Now, there are moves afoot in various jurisdictions to try and progress this, and we're a party to some of them, and we'll continue to be, because we won't. We'll continue to follow all avenues in order to gain justice, so the Palestinian people can achieve the justice they deserve, they're entitled to, and the people who are responsible for criminal acts are held to account.
Yes, James. And also, I think, while we are talking about international law as well, just looking at it from the British government's perspective, their legal duty to protect the yacht and its crew, as they were sailing under the British flag.
I mean, it's an important matter to have a flag of the United Kingdom, the British ensign, flying at the back of our boat. And what has the British government done to date about that? Absolutely nothing. They're not protecting it. And yet here I am in London and they wave a lot of Union Jacks around. The butcher's apron, it's called, from the colonial days. They wave them around. There's pomp and ceremony. There's kings and queens and everything. There's flags everywhere. They actually don't care, though, when this flag is on the back of a boat doing the job that their government should be doing. And so it's time the British people spoke up really loudly and said, hold on a second, there's some serious hypocrisy going on. And there's a significant danger for British mariners who are sailing with British flags on the back of their boat. What sort of precedent does this set for other British ships? British shipping is imperiled by the inaction of the British government. And the British people need to demand the British government act now.
Well, certainly. And also, I think when we look at this, Zohar, as well, from what James has actually described, and I suppose, one can say the same about many of the countries across the world, particularly those in Western Europe. And I know you cited Germany because you are living in Germany as well. And at this point in time, we've seen a number of European nations obviously talking about sanctioning Israel. We've seen the latest with regard to Itamar Ben-Gvir and Smotrich as well. We've seen the freezing of their assets and also looking at, some of these actions. But again, they are actually meaningless until something actually happens, because we've seen in the past, we've seen Benjamin Netanyahu, freedom to enter the United States as well. And as long as we have people that, or countries and governments that show total disregard for the international world order or the international legal order, the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, the ICC, this obviously will continue, because they will continue acting with impunity if nothing gets done.
Yeah, and I would say again, to me, governments have their role, but I really do not expect much from them. They are motivated by interests that are not the interests of their people. And I think, again, our action and what we aim to do is to move people to demand that their rights are respected, not just the rights of the Palestinians, but rights of people everywhere. And what we managed to expose by our actions and the reaction of Israel and then the inaction of the governments to it is to alert people to the fact that all these protections and rights are conditioned on the government's will to enforce them. And so people should be worried about, when we disregard the rights of the Palestinians, it will eventually harm us. And when people realize this and they stand up to their governments and they demand action, or they refuse to cooperate with these systems of oppression, then we will see a change in the world. And I want to say that the background of the international system that we are now seeing dismantled by the inaccountability of Israel was put into place after the Second World War, exactly because of what happened to Jews, but of course not only Jews, but many people, because of their political beliefs or because of their origins, like the Sinti and Roma. And it is tragic, actually, that we see the people who claim to suffer from anti-Semitism put these, put these systems totally into disuse by their impunity and lack of accountability.
Yes, and also I think, James, let's just talk about how Israel is actually handling the custody of those that have been detained. Now, we know 4 have been deported. The 8 still remain detained at this point in time. And again, question marks arise because they were abducted from international waters. They were brought into Israel against their will. And now we see Israel trying to dictate terms, talking about signing documents, consenting to deportation or remain in detention and appear before a tribunal.
Yeah, we've still got 8 of the 12 people are still detained unlawfully. And we've got some information from our lawyers. We're working with Adala, in Arabic meaning justice organization. They're helping us enormously in the Israeli prisons. Many Palestinian prisoners. There's 10 to 20,000 Palestinian detainees, hostages being held at the moment by the Israeli state that need releasing. And the conditions which the 8 remaining people from the Freedom Flotilla are experiencing are a taste of what Palestinian prisoners feel. But they have international support from their consulates and from lawyers. So there are people in touch with them. However, the conditions which they're being held in are indicative of the way in which Palestinian prisoners are held. So the reports we've got are of appalling conditions in terms of infestations of bugs and stuff throughout the place. There are undrinkable water people that are being given, or the amounts of sleep deprivation, psychological attacks which are being carried out to people, massive amounts of noise, people just being abused repeatedly. And these are the first-hand testimonies which we're getting. We've heard that Rima Hassan, the member of the European Parliament, was threatened with her head being smashed against the wall unless she signed a deportation paper admitting she'd come to Israel. I mean, these are some serious stuff going on here. But this is the people who are known about in a high-profile mission with millions of people watching them. What's happening to Palestinian people? Well, we know what's happening. They're being systematically tortured, raped, and murdered in Israeli prisons. That's what's happening to people, most of whom have had no charge level against them, and they're detained indefinitely. So this is the biggest crime. And if the time that our activists and journalists are now spending in Israeli prisons for several days gets to shine that light, I think that most of the people who will be watching will go, who are experiencing this from the Freedom Flotilla, many of them would have been going, wow, this is an opportunity to expose what's happening to Palestinian prisoners. And we are, for this brief moment in time, experiencing what it is like to be Palestinian. So this is as far as the actual departure dates and things, we have been given some provisional dates and flights as to when people may be leaving. And we understand that some people, they love to treat people differentially. It's their classic apartheid. So be it the differential system they have. So they will be abusing people in different ways. Tiago Avila is still on hunger strike for food and water, and he's in solitary confinement. He's confined to a very small, very dark place, and he's being punished for his outspokenness. Rim Hassan was on hunger strike. She's ended a hunger strike, and she'd been returned to another prison. There's a lot going on at the moment, and they said they're going to leave on different flights. We believe nothing that these liars say. They're liars, they're thieves, they're bandits, and we believe nothing. We want our people to be released. We want all Palestinian people to be released from this unlawful detention they're being held. There's thousands of them. But we hope they'll be released soon. But our anticipation at this stage will be somewhere between 1 to 7 more days before some of the people will be released. This is not over yet.
Well, thanks for that, James. We're going to go for a quick ad break. I'm hoping that Sümeyra will be able to join us because, I'd like to talk about her concerns regarding her husband, Shoaib Ordu. So hopefully we will try and get her, but we're going to go for a quick ad break. We need to pay some bills. We'll be back.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Kids these days are smart, and when you're competing for their attention against their smartphones, you need to make smart choices, like using Sunfoil Triple Refined Pure Sunflower Oil in every meal you make. It's naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether you're cooking, frying, or baking, you get the great tasting results that'll get their attention faster than the latest app. And if that doesn't work, change the Wi-Fi password. Sunfoil. Now we're cooking.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities, conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
For too many communities across Africa and the world, access to clean water remains a dream. At Africa Muslims Agency, we dig deep, reaching into the heart of the earth to fill the cups of those in need. Sponsor a water well for 16,500 Rand, or a borehole in Afghanistan for 55,000 Rand, or Africa for 65,000 Rand, or any amount. With water comes food, health, education, and growth. An ongoing reward with Africa Muslims Agency.
Yasin Badat Financial Advisory. Are your financial goals feeling out of reach? Yasin Badat Financial Advisory is here to turn your aspirations into achievements. Our dedicated team, armed with a history of success, is ready to guide you through the complex nature of financial and investment planning. Whether you're a seasoned investor or new to the game, our personalized solutions cater to your unique goals and risk appetite. Trust in our commitment to transparency, integrity, and excellence. Ready to unlock a world of financial freedom? Partner with us today. Call Yasin Badat Financial Advisory at +27 33 346 2071 or visit www.yasinbadat.com. Yasin Badat Financial Advisory, guiding you to financial success.
Make a conscious choice. Sip for change and support Palestine Drinks Africa. With every can, you help end the genocide and stand in solidarity with Palestine. Choose between our original or sugar-free options available in a case of 24. Every sip is a step towards justice. Every purchase a powerful message of unity and support for the Palestinian cause. Contact 082-888-1440 or 082-7739-556 today and be part of the change. Palestine Drinks Africa. Sip for change. Liberty for everyone.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Well, we continue with our discussion this evening right here on Salam Media in conversation with myself, Inayat Wadi, and we are raising some serious questions and also accompanied by condemnation as Israel had actually abducted the Medellin, the Freedom Flotilla, and we are now starting to learn with regards to those who have been held in detention, and both interception and also in terms of their detention, they are both illegal in more ways than one. Now, Zohar, just to continue, and I know one of those that have been detained, Yasmin Acker, who is in Germany, so she is a German citizen, and we've seen many of these coming through from the Netherlands, from France, and also from Brazil, as James had alluded to. So, there are people from right across many other parts around the world. The key issue here, and from what James had actually described, there are serious concerns with regards to their conditions, the appalling conditions, and also in terms of looking at Israel and its detention and its own legal system, and that there is no justice to be found in Israel's legal system. And we've seen that happen over and over again. How much of a concern is this that those that have been detained will receive justice and they will get a fair trial?
Well, they are actually not on trial. What happens continually with our missions, ever since 2010, when the 6 boats were stopped in international water, and all, there were over 500 activists only on the Mavi Marmara, and there were 6 different boats in that mission. All of them were kidnapped in international water, brought to an Israeli port against their will, and then accused of having entered Israel illegally. This is what they always do. Now, Adallah, our lawyers in 48 Palestine, have repeatedly said Israel has no jurisdiction in international water. This boat was sailing towards Palestinian recognized territorial waters, towards Gaza. Israel had no business boarding that ship. Once they did that, once they boarded it and kidnapped the people and brought them to an Israeli port against their will, it cannot, in any normal legal system, accuse them of having entered Israel illegally. The fact that they're processed as illegal immigrants and being allowed a hearing by a judge that basically just signs their order of deportation, the fact that, as James said, they are being pressured, even with threats of violence to Rima Hassan, to sign a declaration accepting this lie that they entered Israel illegally, is already a violation of their rights. But it does not surprise us, because the Israeli system is not just itself, so we do not accept any justice from it. You mentioned that I was the owner of the Zaytouna, our boat that was used in 2016. The ownership is basically formal, and it is not such a important issue. But the issue is Israel confiscates these boats because it claims that the blockade it imposes on the Gaza Strip is legal because they declared a maritime blockade. But the fact is, it is illegal. It is a crime against humanity because it's a collective punishment on the whole population of the Gaza Strip, which under international law, because the area is occupied by Israel, should be under the protection of the occupying power. They should be not only respected as human beings, and their rights, including the right of freedom of movement, should be respected, but they should actually be protected. And what we see is that they are being massacred, they are being bombed continuously, they are being burned alive, they are being starved to death. They have no water, they have no shelter, they have nowhere to go. Israel is now breaking the Gaza Strip into different zones and trying to somehow push these starving people into small areas where they are allegedly going to get some aid, some food, and then killing them as they come to get it. This is actually what we should be speaking about. And of course, our activists are choosing to insert themselves into this position because we want to force our government, we want to force the French government to take care of its citizens because they were on our boat. We want to force the German government to acknowledge that it has citizens on this boat and they need to somehow address this. The consul of Germany in Tel Aviv should go and visit Yasmin and hear from her why she went, because the German foreign ministry response is, you put yourself in danger, you're on a political mission, we do not need to help you because you're not just an innocent German that's caught in trouble. But we say this loud and clear. We try to put our bodies on the line because this is how we save our own humanity, because we cannot just watch idly as the population of Gaza is being exterminated.
Yes, Zohar. Also, James, the fact that South Africa had taken this matter up with the ICC and the ICJ, and looking at the Freedom Flotilla, and with both the boat interception, the detention of the activists as well, all of them are illegal at this point in time. What are the opportunities of actually adding to South Africa's action against Israel? And again, where we see, again, it's on record in terms of the violation of the maritime law, violation of international humanitarian law, and also the whole question surrounding the war crimes that Israel has committed. Is there opportunity of adding to those charges? If you could unmute your mic, please, James.
I mean, that's a question for the international lawyers, particularly those in South Africa. And we have strong confidence that people in the legal community around the world will be looking at what's just happened to the Freedom Flotilla and going, okay, this is additional evidence of the criminality which needs to be subjected to international law. So we are stand by. As I mentioned earlier, we're working with some organizations already and having some discussions with some lawyers. I'm not directly aware of discussions with South African government lawyers, but we're open to have discussions with anybody who's willing to bring these matters, advance these matters to gain justice for us. So the Freedom Flotilla and the people who participated have been on our missions can gain justice. And we think it's indicative that if we can gain justice, this has flow-on effect. And we need to expose the criminality of the Israeli government. And as we do that in the international forum, if that's what it takes, if it takes us to do that, then we're up for it. Use us as an example if we can help that to gain justice. So Palestinian fishers can ply their trade and they can fish safely in the waters of the Mediterranean rather than being routinely attacked, forced to take their clothes off, jump into the water, beaten, have their boats destroyed, their fishing nets destroyed. If we can help stop that by sailing our boats and by adding to cases in various international courts, absolutely, we're with it.
Yes, and also, James, I think what is important to understand as well is, you mentioned exposing the criminality of the Israeli government, and it's going to be interesting to see how this land convoy that is going to go and try and break the siege as well, going through from Africa, from Libya, from Tunisia and Morocco, and going through to Egypt, and also in terms of how this march to the Rafah crossing is actually going to play out.
I mean, that's what we do. This civil society has had enough of passivity, and people have decided that they need to put their bodies on the line. So we take our boats and we take and our bodies and we put them on the line. And there's a lot of people in the background who support them. There's people like Zohar who go on these boats, but there's people in the background where there's no space for everyone on our boats, and we need participants on land. We need people who aren't able to march to the borders. We need people who can't get onto boats. We need all of them all around the world. But there are people who can, and the people who can and have the capacity to participate and put their bodies on the line, there are many of them, and we're seeing them across North Africa, across heading towards Palestine to break the blockade. And we'll continue taking people on to try and open the maritime borders, and there are people now trying to break the land borders. As to how the different state powers act to respond to this, well, some of that's up to us as citizens who aren't there to make sure that they react in the way in which they should be acting. So in terms of the Egyptian government, they need to be made to open the border. That's what needs to happen. And the other neighboring Arab countries need to be made to open the borders. That's what needs to happen. And if they don't, if they're too cowardly, they will be judged by their populations. But we're not there. We're in our different places. So where I am, the British people will be judging, and I'm normally living in the colony of Australia, and the Australian people will judge the Australian government for its failures and its complicity of continuing to provide weapons to the Israeli government weapons parts and weapons components and two-way arms trade. So we need the governments to act.
Yes, clearly, and this is a statement that is going out very, very loud and clear in terms of governments and fulfilling their obligations under international law to stop Israel from committing these war crimes. But the key issue here, Zohar, is also in terms of accountability. And, will Israel be held accountable, or will they assume full accountability for these military assaults on the Medellin, and also you mentioned the conscience earlier this year?
Well, I think the tide is turning. I think eventually, and it is not thanks to us, it's thanks to the Palestinian people and their perseverance under this horrific genocide, and also the constant attacks in the West Bank on especially the most vulnerable communities. And the fact that these voices are being heard now also through cinema, through this documentary about Massafra Yatta, No Other Land, that won an Oscar. And tide is turning. People are realizing that if we don't stand up to this now, and we don't demand accountability, then our own rights are at stake. And so I do believe that we need to increase the pressure, just like the convoys are doing, just like people all over the world are beginning to say, I do not want to have to face the next generations asking me, what did you do while this was going on, and be able to say, I didn't do anything. It really is a time for humanity to re-examine its values and its willingness to take sacrifices. Just like James was saying, not all of us can be on the boats. Perhaps not all of us can march in the Sinai desert, but all of us can do something in our own places. Come out of our comfort zone and say, enough is enough. We do not go on with our routine lives as if nothing is happening.
Well, certainly, Zohar, and also James, from what Zohar is talking about, all of us can actually do something. Now, we all know that, we may not be in the same space, as far as our governments are concerned. To an extent, I mean, we are fortunate in South Africa compared to many other countries in Western Europe, in the countries like the United States of America, where we have a government that sits up, that takes notice, and that actually listens to us. And, those are freedoms that we actually cherish. And also in terms of, what we have been doing in South Africa is from a media perspective, at Salam Media, we brought in a number of people from Gaza. We've had many journalists come through. We've had a doctor come through from in Dr. Mez Gilbert at the height when the hospitals were under pressure in Gaza. In next week, we have another journalist that is coming through who spent 300 days documenting the genocide in Gaza, a photojournalist, a graffiti artist as well. So, these are some of the actions that we are taking here to continue raising awareness, but also at the same time, not losing momentum. And this, James, is absolutely crucial. I know sometimes people suffer with fatigue, but again, when we look at the actions, particularly with regard to the Medellin, it wouldn't serve as a deterrent, I suppose, for you and the Freedom Flotilla coalition. In fact, it will just inspire you to continue and, once again, motivate people that this struggle has to continue. It must continue until this genocide ends and until Palestine is liberated.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we draw our inspiration not only from the Palestinian people, but from the South African people. I mean, you have the landscape you're in because you fought a liberation struggle to overthrow, another apartheid regime. Also supported by a British and American, by the same peoples. So you are where you are because of that. And we have a lot to learn from your struggle, and we continue to that. But no, we're not in any way deterred. We are further emboldened. Of course, we need time to reflect. We need to consider what's happened. We need to acknowledge the significant achievements which we've made in terms of our outreach to people, which we've talked about earlier on the program. And there's so many more people now contacting us, wanting to participate, offering to join us on boats, to help on land, to provide boats. People who want to donate money to us of all sorts, very small amounts of money, but from thousands of different people. Lots of ways to help out, and people can go to our freedomflotilla.org website and check out different ways to support. And we're seeing an enormous influx of people at the moment. But at the moment, we're focusing on trying to get the people out of the prisons as soon as possible, get them safely home. But simultaneously, we're organizing the next boats to sail.
James, when last, are you able to contact those that are held in detention directly, or are you talking to them through their lawyers?
I'm not talking directly. It's through other people in the coalition and through the lawyers. So we're getting communications and with different people at different times. So because there's still 8 of them, they're all different conditions and different lawyers approaching different people. So it's quite diverse, but we're getting a flow of information from most of the people. But there's significant concerns, and particularly the Brazilian government needs to step up to support Tiago Avila, particularly the French government, to support the French member of the European Parliament and the others who are being held. But we feel that these 2 governments in particular should be acting. And where's the European Union? Where is it? There's more than 40 members of the European Parliament signed a condemnation letter and demand that Rima Hassan and others be released. And the European Parliament has done nothing apart from continue to not terminate the free trade agreement which it has with Israel. It should terminate it immediately.
Well, certainly. And also, I think, Zohar, I think at this point in time, what is crucial also is to look at, the condition, obviously, in the Israeli prisons, but also it's something that we have been highlighting for a very, very long time, that if those that are held in detention are treated in this way, we've seen even with the release with the temporary ceasefire that had taken place with the release of Palestinian prisoners and their condition, and how they had actually how they were treated was in the military injustice system, rather than calling it a justice system in Israel. And this, I think, is a scary part, and I'm sure it's of major concern.
Yes, of course. And as James mentioned before, the conditions for Palestinians are horrendous. People are being starved to death inside those prisons. There are dozens of Palestinian prisoners who died in custody. Of course, it's nothing. What happens to our activists is nothing compared to that. But still, the fact that these people, like Schweib and the others, were willing to risk being taken into Israeli prison and not sign, it was a strategic decision to let a few of the participants sign and be released or deported earlier, because it's important for us to resume communication and to hear testimonies of what happened and also of the conditions. And the doctor, Baptiste André, the French one, was speaking in Paris about the conditions that they had to suffer, about the sleep deprivation, the horrendous hygienic conditions with, infestation of insects and whatnot. But I want to say that we are very much aware of the differentiated treatment. And Schweib, for example, Sümeyra's husband, has a Turkish passport. And we were worried about him. So one of the things that the activists on the boat decided is that they would stick around until the last one of them is sent home, because they do not want to leave somebody more vulnerable that could then be somehow forgotten behind. And it's heartbreaking to see Sümeyra, being worried about her husband, but it's also inspiring to see how strong they feel about it. And I want to say that Shoaib has suffered depression during this. I know them because they are actually my neighbors here in Germany, and they were really suffering with not being able to do enough. And the chance that Shoaib was given to go on this boat was a highlight for him. And I think he's willing to endure a lot more in order to expose what Israel does and to try to force even the Turkish government, that is, in words, they condemn Israel, but in deeds, they do not cut ties. And Sümeyra, having her husband there, has the possibility to speak directly to high-ranking officers in the Ankara administration and to tell them it is about time, not because of Shoaib, but because of Palestine, that you actually cut ties with Israel.
Yes, certainly. And I think what you are saying, Zohar, and is very, very crucial here, because when we look at what had taken place in 2015 with the Mavi Marmara, and this is where 10 Turkish nationals were actually killed. And, at that point in time, we know it created a diplomatic crisis between Turkey and Israel, and again, was restored in 2022. Now, again, this speaks volumes as far as the relationship that Turkey has had with Israel as well, to the extent that, you've had your nationals killed, you've had your own civilians killed, yet you go back and you try and restore a relationship with Israel.
Yeah, and we know how the Turkish people feel about this because we've seen them. We've seen them marching in the streets. We've seen them, donate, as James said, many, many millions of people donating small sums, which enable us to buy those huge ships that Sümeyra was talking about, being ready to sail to Gaza in April 2024. We had the grandson of Nelson Mandela, who came to support us then. And, it is inspiring to see how the people react, but it is very, very disappointing to see that governments do not care enough to do the same.
Yes. James, I know you spoke earlier on about the Palestinian neighbors. We're talking about the Arab world. We're talking about the Gulf states as well. Could these Gulf states do a lot more to protect the Middle East?
I mean, the states have responsibilities to act, and they should know what their responsibilities are. It's our job as civil society to encourage, support civil society members in each of the nation states which exist at the moment, to assist them in how they can lobby their governments to ensure their governments do what they should be doing. It's very clear the things that international law requires states at the moment to be acting, to be taking cases. It's a state-based system. And so, yeah, there is a responsibility on the states. All of these ones should be taking action, and it would make a substantial difference if they did. Do we anticipate they're likely to immediately? Not really. That's why we're doing what we're doing. Do we hope that they can? Absolutely. That's why we're doing it. So there's a role for them. There is a role, but they're not fulfilling it at the moment. They need to keep stepping up, and they just keep being nudged. And every single act, civil society actions that we do and that we support and we encourage through as we sail our boats around Europe and towards Palestine, we're trying to spur on other local groups to encourage their particular nation states to be doing better. But it's not just nation states. In addition to that, we've got the large institutions, corporations, institutions. We've got pension funds, massive ones, investing and profiting from the mass murder, mass slaughter going on in Palestine. It's not just about states, though they are massively important. There's a huge amount of work that needs to be done with institutions and corporations and investments to remove the profit that's being made from genocide.
Well, it's going to be quite interesting, James, to actually see when this latest initiative from North Africa into Egypt, and also the march to the Rafah crossing, in terms of how a government like Egypt will be responding to these actions that will be taking place to demand the opening of the Rafah crossing and allowing humanitarian aid into Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying for as far as our boats go, we need all eyes on deck, but here we need all eyes on the border. All eyes need to be on the border as people begin to approach the borders of Palestine. What's happening? Everyone needs to be alert. And we don't just need eyes, we need hearts, we need minds, we need fingers typing, wearing keyboards, we need people marching on the streets who can't make it to the borders, but marching in their streets and demanding action. And that's the only way this is going to happen. It will force the neighboring countries to do what they know they should do, what they must do for humanity.
Yes, in fact, I see here in South Africa, there is, just to coincide with the march to Rafah, there is going to be some action on the same day at the Egyptian embassy here in South Africa. And this is actually what needs to happen right across the entire world, to make a very, very powerful statement. So as we're going to be ending this evening's broadcast, perhaps just some final thoughts from yourself before we get to James.
I would say, and this is a little bit a paraphrase on what Thiago has been saying, that one little boat cannot bring all the aid needed in Gaza. It can bring some hope, but what it can mostly do is to really open the way for more boats to come, whatever the outcome, whether this boat would have been bombed, even if as it was intercepted. It should only encourage us to increase the pressure. Imagine that next time there will be 5 boats, 10 boats, 100 boats, 1,000 boats coming towards Palestine, not just Gaza. Palestine has a long shoreline. It's Haifa, it's Akka, it's Jaffa. All of these cities should be liberated. Palestinians should have access to the sea. So let's use the sea, because it's a symbol of freedom. But let's use the land as well, because people should be able to go to Palestine and not have to go through the occupying force. So let's use this as a wake-up call for our humanity to demand justice.
Thank you for that, Zohar. James, final thoughts?
My final one is really, it is a question about humanity. It's about our humanity as well. And to retain our humanity, we must do what we do. And people must step up now. There's the time for prevarication is over. The time to move into uncomfortable spaces and have those awkward conversations is well past. Step up to the mark, get to it, get involved with your local, national, or international campaign. And if you want to support the Freedom Flotilla, you'll find all of us on freedomflotilla.org. We'd love to have you part of our national campaigns or international work.
Well, certainly, I've been on your website, and I must say that, I've seen so much actually come through, and we certainly will encourage people to get onto your website as well. To both of you, James, Godfrey, and to, unfortunately, Sümeyra obviously had to leave us, but to you, Zohar, as well, we thank you. We do appreciate both of you taking time out and spending time with us right here on Salam Media. All the best to both of you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Yes, that brings us to the end of this evening's discussion in conversation with myself, Inayat Wadi. And once again, we've raised the questions, we've heard of the condemnation as far as Israel is concerned, and the abduction of the Freedom Flotilla, the Medellin, and also the detention, the illegal detention of the activists who are on the boat. And clearly there are many, many concerns with regards to their well-being, as James had articulated. That the conditions in Israel prisons are not that good, and also looking at appalling is the word that we actually should be using. So putting all of that together, we are obviously going to be watching with interest. The Freedom Flotilla has made demands, because again, talking about world governments that have remained silent even when the Conscience was bombed. Now Israel is testing their silence again, and every hour without consequences just makes Israel a lot more bolder to escalate its attack on civilians, on aid workers, and the very foundations of international law. And this is the reason why this demand is there: the end to the illegal and deadly siege of Gaza, the immediate release of all abducted volunteers, the immediate delivery of humanitarian aid directly to Palestinians that is independent of the control of this occupying power, and more importantly, full accountability for the military assault on the Medellin and Conscience. And this is an obligation on the part of governments under international law, so that they can stop Israel and stop it dead in its tracks from committing all these international crimes, whether they against humanity, whether it's war crimes, and also whether it is criminal actions on the part of this criminal Zionist regime. And with that, I'm going to be signing off once again. It's been an absolute pleasure being in your company, from myself and the team right here at Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.